Broadcasting live from global headquarters at RP Enterprises in Greenwood, Missouri.
Stand by on this frequency.
After 22 years of entertaining FM radio listeners across the U.S., this man is the owner and executive producer of the award-winning Heartland Waterfowl on Sportsman's Channel, CEO and founder of Dumar Chemical Solutions, and the man behind the mic of Papa Ron Radio voiceovers and production. He's the man, the myth, the legend.
That's right.
A global icon, future Nobel Prize winner.
What?
And of course, he paid me to say all this.
Really?
Literally.
Damn right.
Welcome to the Papa Ron Podcast. Here's your host, Ronnie Phillips.
It has finally arrived, ladies and gentlemen. The Papa Ron Podcast is underway! And I'm going to tell you right out of the gate, this is the official theme song of the Papa Ron Podcast. When times get tough, you got to roll with the changes, baby. So if you don't like REO Speedwagon, I just get the hell out of here. That is the theme song of the Papa Ron Podcast. And welcome to the very first episode. Every show is going to cover a variety of different topics. And hopefully, sure to offer something for everyone, from personal development, entrepreneurship, mental health, hunting, fishing, sports betting, and so much more. And of course, you can even interact. You can interact with the Papa Ron Podcast by simply calling in, leaving a voicemail, or you can text into the show by calling 816-558-6389, 816-558-6389. Be sure to subscribe to the Papa Ron Podcast. We are on all the popular podcast platforms, from Spotify to Apple and Amazon, Google, CastBox, and the Papa Ron Podcast video can also be seen on the Papa Ron Podcast YouTube channel. So, hey, a little bit later on in the show, we're going to be talking to a good friend of mine who actually was a radio veteran of 27 years. He worked at Mix 93.3 in Kansas City. His name is Matthew Blades, who currently resides in Arizona, but he's no longer doing radio. We're going to find out why he left radio, what is it that he is doing now, and why is it, or how is it that Matthew and I reconnected after nearly 20 years, making him the very first guest of the Papa Ron Podcast. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome my two special co-hosts to episode 1 of the Papa Ron Podcast from Marathon Media Management, Dakota Thurn, Quentin Verlanek. Yeah. What's up?
We are glad to be here.
See, here at RP Enterprises Global Headquarters, we have a very large in-studio crowd, and unfortunately, there was a big old line outside that we had to turn a few people away, but I want to thank everyone in attendance for that big round of applause for Marathon Media Management. Thank you guys for being here.
Yeah, it's got me a little shell-shocked. The audience, the crowd outside,
I know.
Everything. I was kind of nervous.
Well, you did bring gifts, and I want to thank you. So cheers to the very first Papa Ron Podcast.
Cheers.
Thanks to you guys, Marathon Media Management. So just take away the little jitters and have a little sip there. You guys know I'm a bourbon guy. So, I'm telling you, there is a lot of reasons for why I wanted you guys to be here today, and we're going to get into that, and some of it's very deep and emotional, but we're going to talk about that a little bit later. There is a popular question that is about amongst my art circle and, you know, the people that are in my network on social media, and the question is, why is it called the Papa Ron Podcast? And honestly, it's a name that I was coined, and I didn't even coin it. It was you guys amongst the Heartland Waterfowl team that gave me the name.
Yeah, it's because you're the old guy.
I'm the old balls.
Yeah, old balls gets Papa Ron. He's the guy that is the father figure, the glue that keeps us all together, if you would say.
Right. And of course, it kind of rhymes with Papa John.
Yeah.
And then, you know, and maybe they're, you know, hopefully they might be a sponsor of the Papa Ron Podcast here, since I just gave them a plug. Papa Roach, you know, which kind of sounds similar to Papa Ron, and hopefully maybe we'll get the licensing rights to use their music on the show. So, but anyway, it's basically a crack at my age. I'm 46 years old, above and beyond older than all of the other guys on the Heartland Waterfowl team. And I didn't want it to just be the Ronnie Phillips Podcast. I wanted to have some sort of flavor to it. And I thought, well, what the hell? Let's just be Papa Ron to everybody everybody who's listening. So that is the answer to your question. And, you know, my goal for this podcast is to make this kind of I would love for you guys to co-host every single week because we have so much in common and there's a good flow and chemistry. But you guys are so busy with what you're doing at Marathon. So I know that that's not possible, but the goal then is to have a special co-host for this show on each episode. And there's a significant reason why I chose Dakota and Q to be the first co-host on episode 1. And again, we're going to get into all of that a little bit later, but how we met and how we've kind of evolved, we kind of discussed all of that already on your guys' very own podcast.
Yes, The Juice.
The Juice podcast. Now, I will tell you that there is another podcast out there called The Juice. Did you know that?
I know, but they're not as good as us.
Well, I don't even think they have an episode.
Well,
I think they just have a trailer and that's it.
Catch up.
Right. So if you get a chance, I would love for you to go subscribe and listen to the interview that I did with them back on April 8th. That kind of talks about how we all met and how that relationship flourished into the involvement of Heartland Waterfowl and beyond. And then your guys' podcast, you guys really discuss a variety of different topics as well.
Yeah, we get into it all. One of the big things for us is we just want to be able to talk what we're interested in.
Right.
And we're by no means experts in any of the subjects that we're interested in. No. But it's just a time for us it's kind of like therapy for us, you know, being able to just sit down, talk, go through points, have a little bit of argument every once in a while. I kind of like that, enjoy that, hear some counterpoints. But yeah, it's a good time.
Well, a lot of the passions that I have are the ones that you guys have and vice versa. So, I mean, from my time listening to the Juice podcast, there's hunting and fishing and entrepreneurship, real estate, flipping houses, content creation, all of that and so much more. You'll find that on the Juice podcast. So after this show, not right now, but after this show, get on to your favorite podcast platform and subscribe to the Juice podcast. So before we get into all the deep, and it's going to happen on this show, I know there's a lot of energy right now and we're all excited, but I'm telling you that there is a reason why it's going to get deep here a little bit later on. Before we get there, on the Papa Ron podcast, let's discuss Marathon Media Management. Now, you guys are really young. You're mid-20s, right? Like 24, 25?
27.
Oh, you're 27 now. 27. You can't be 27.
Just turned 25 on
right.
Monday. So
you're young guys, basically in your middle 20s, and you're doing some really incredible things, which is, like we're a product of our environment, which is a big reason why you guys are involved with Heartland Waterfowl in the capacity that you are, because you do great work and a lot of things that you're even doing is inspiring to me. So what is it about Marathon Media Management? Where did it come from? Where was the vision? Where was the vision that launched that business?
So Marathon for me was kind of basically the step past imposter syndrome. I had this imposter syndrome of being a creator and and not only just being a creator, but also running a business. I was a young guy. I had been through a handful of other different partnerships and stuff like that. And Marathon now is like the staple, or is the like flag in the ground that is, okay, we're official. We're a full-on production company. We can shoot a television show. We can do podcasts. We can do anything under the sun that has to do with media. We can do from media management to creating all the content for brands. So basically for us, it was somewhere to hold, all of these things that we wanted to compass with our business there underneath the Marathon name. And now it's something we take pride in. Like we rep the Marathon stripes, and we're excited about it. And I feel like now we're finally getting our feet underneath us and starting to, dial in on our vision and where we're going to be at. So it's very exciting. It's a very exciting period right now for us.
It's awesome. You guys have come so far. And again, you can hear about how Heartland Waterfowl and myself, along with Dakota and Q, got connected by listening to their podcast. And in fact, I encourage that you do that. But I know where you were from the infancy stages of being involved in the industry and doing content creation. And my God, the level that you guys have taken it and not only for Heartland Waterfowl, but for yourselves. And from where you started to where you are today, it is unbelievable. So, all right, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to discuss your guys' involvement with Heartland Waterfowl in the recent launch of the Heartland Waterfowl original series. We're also going to share a few stories and funny moments while we've been on the road. There was a little incident with you and I in the bathroom in North Dakota. We'll get to that in just a bit. It's going to be pretty funny. Also, later in the show, we're going to get real deep and personal about a topic that is very relevant to me and how it's relevant to many others. There's a significant moment in my life that included these guys and inspired me to launch this Papa Ron podcast. All of that and an interview with former Night Slammer at Mix 93.3 in Kansas City, Matthew Blaze, coming up on the Papa Ron podcast.
The Papa Ron podcast is brought to you by the award-winning Heartland Waterfowl, airing now on Sportsman's Channel. Check heartlandwaterfowl.com for air times. The all-new Season 9 debuts in July on Sportsman's Channel. And don't forget about the new original series on the Heartland Waterfowl YouTube channel. Check it out and don't doubt the scout. Now, back to the Papa Ron podcast. Here's Ronnie Phillips.
Don't forget, you can follow the Papa Ron podcast on Instagram and find out about future guests and topics. And remember that you can be a part of this show by simply texting in or leaving a voicemail at 816-558-6389. Also encourage you to check out the home of the Papa Ron podcast at paparonradio.com. Coming up, going to be talking with Matthew Blaze. Some of you might remember him from his days working nights in Kansas City at Mix 93.3. He's also worked in Washington, D.C. He's been in Milwaukee and a lot of other radio markets. He has a very interesting and inspiring story, and one of which I can relate to, and that's coming up a little bit later in the show. So, special co-host of the show, Dakota Thurn, Quentin Verlinek, also known as Q. So I'm going to probably just call him Q for the rest of the show. They're with Marathon Media Management. You two have been involved now with Heartland Waterfowl for, 3 or 4 years now? Maybe you 5.
I think I'm on 5.
Talk about that journey. Because you guys started out as super fans of the Heartland brands, be it Heartland Bowhunter and Heartland Waterfowl. And then you kind of came on a few trips. Then you became hired full time, not only to field produce, but also to be contracted to produce the original series on YouTube.
Yeah, it's been a long road for sure. I remember getting the first phone call to be a part of one of the first trips. And I was driving an explosive truck at the time. And if you would have told me that that phone call was going to turn into basically a paradigm shift for my life as of now, you know what I mean? If you would have told me that, I would have been like, you're crazy. There's no way that phone call is going to turn into what it has now.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Q?
Very similar. I got my first phone call 2 years ago from Papa Ron himself.
Was I the one who called you?
I'm pretty sure.
I thought that I only communicated with the popular Q through his agent, Dakota Thurn.
Yeah, yeah, but same deal for me. I was working at an irrigation company and told him, I got a opportunity of a lifetime to do, so I'm going to take it, and I did it. So I'm glad I have taken it. But
you guys really were super fans before we even, got, and again, we talk about a little bit of this on the Juice podcast. Again, you need to check that out on your favorite podcast platforms. But you guys really were super fans.
Yeah, I legit was like the biggest super fan of all. Like, I paid attention to all the stuff, went to all the premieres. Like, I was the one waving their hand in the crowd, like trying to get giveaways and stuff. I mean, everything. Like newsletter, subscribe.
I wanted to be the first in the line to get the Yetis, all that.
Oh, yeah. I'm hoping that we're going to do that again this year. We'll actually talk about the premiere next week on the Papa Ron podcast. What about most memorable moments? Like, you guys have been on the road with us now for a few years, and I don't know that people understand that when we go on the road, it's basically at a week at a time. 5 to 7 days that we are in this brotherhood, living in close proximities. There's bound to be some crazy stuff that's going to happen. What are some of the most memorable moments that you've got since you've been on the road with Heartland Waterfowl?
I mean, we've had.
That's a tough question.
Here's the crazy thing is, whenever you say most memorable moments, there's all sorts of camaraderie things that you could think of, but also we've had some of the most incredible hunts that anyone could ever dream of for the last however many years that I've been a part, and you guys have been doing it longer than I've been a part, but we're talking about bucket list hunts. So, I mean, you don't have enough time, and we don't have enough SD cards, and we don't have enough footage to be able to talk about the amount of hunts that we've been on that have been incredible. But I think this year, one of my most memorable was definitely this year. We're doing the YouTube stuff. Whenever we finally felt that we got it, like the light switch, and it was like the production time shrank. It was taking like 4 hours to get an episode. It went down to 2. I finally felt like we got the speed, and like we all were kind of like getting it was just like a light bulb moment.
Right.
And it happened about mid-season. So
Yeah.
that was big for me. But I mean, I've been on incredible hunts all over the freaking place.
So you're not going to say your most memorable moment is when you took a crawdad to the nipple? I mean, that's one of my most memorable moments when I think of Dakota Thorn on the road with Heartland Waterfowl.
I wonder if I wouldn't have done that if I wouldn't have made the impression, and you guys wouldn't still be hanging out with me if I
Right.
wouldn't.
There might be a lot of truth to that, actually. I mean, you would take one for the team. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah,
you
it's
would go above and beyond, not only with just the work ethic, but if we said, hey, how funny would it be if some idiot decided to let this crawdad pinch its nipple? Dakota's quickly, I'll do it. We're like, perfect. Kind of like the intern, or, the guy that you're going to send out. If you've ever listened to like a morning show where they basically pick on the intern to do the stupid stuff, like you were the intern.
I think they call that hazing.
I think there's some legalities to that, or there could be some further prosecution. So I'm just going to stay away from that. Q, do you have anything that really stands out as a memorable moment from being on the road?
Man, it's hard to pick when you've been on the trips that we have, but I think, like Dakota said, I don't think it's more of the camaraderie. I think as a hunter in general, man, I gotta say that first morning High Plains.
I knew he was going to say Wyoming. He loved Wyoming.
Dude, Wyoming was just beautiful.
You can't complain about that.
You
Cannot
we shot limits
complain
every
about
day.
that, and we
Before
shot a
10
limit
o'clock.
in 45 minutes.
I'm just surprised you picked that after missing a quill, like moneyed up, like a good quill, not just like a little white patch quill. Like this is a trophy quill, and it is moneyed up. We need one more bird to finish our day, and we're gonna finish with a quill, a trophy quill. Boom, boom, no, boom.
Yeah, and
Bum,
we got
bum,
footage
bum,
of it too, so it makes it even worse. It wasn't like, I don't think it was a quill. Nope, it was.
Actually, I still love the fact that you picked Wyoming and High Plains wing shooters. Aaron Garcia is going to love to hear that on the podcast. That you still, after all of that heartbreak and tragedy, that you still pick them as one of your most memorable. So I'm going to tell you that, like, obviously after doing this for 10 years, I've had a lot of different crazy memories, but one of which that involves Dakota happened this past year. It was the very first trip of the year. And man, I'm telling you, I'm really putting myself out there by telling this story, but we got back from hunting. I got the bubble guts. I had to run in. There's two bathrooms, and both bathrooms are on each side of the wall, back to back from one another. And there's Dakota's in the one bathroom taking a shower, and I have got the bubble guts, and I got to poo. I got to get into a bathroom immediately. And this is like explosive diarrhea situation. So I don't have time to evaluate my surroundings, AKA I don't have time to check to see if there's toilet paper. And so I sit down and I just like relieve, get this stuff out of me, the toxicity. And I realize when I turn, there's no toilet paper. I'm checking all the drawers. I'm checking under the sink. There's nothing. Thankfully, everybody is gone from the lodge that we're in. But I have gotten out to get over to this other bathroom, and I know that you're taking a shower. I think I partly forgot about it because I'm traumatized now that I'm going to have to walk out of this room with not knowing what I'm going to walk into. And I was hopeful that you could just still be in the shower and I could sneak in there, get some toilet paper, get back out. Nobody's going to see me. But I got in there and I opened the door, and you had just stepped out of the shower and you literally pulled the towel up to cover yourself. And you're looking at me with my pants basically around my junk, but only surrounding my junk, with my butt hanging over. Yes, and my butt hanging over my belt, and poop hanging off of my butt. And you're looking at me like, what is going on here? And I'm so embarrassed. And I was like, bro, just give me a second. And I quickly went to the toilet and sat down. And I'm like, I had the bubble guts. I had to go. It was an emergency. I ran out of toilet paper. I didn't know what else to do. I had to come in here. And you're like, okay, just don't do anything. Let me dry off, get my stuff, and I'm going to get out of here. You did not want me to wipe in front of you.
Yeah, it was bad enough that you came in there whenever I was in the shower, but then then we had to have a conversation while you were on the toilet about why you were in there. And I was like,
it was very uncomfortable. Yeah.
Let me put my underwear on, and then you can wipe. Just sit there and let me do my thing.
Yeah, that was awful.
And I'm calling HR about it.
I bet you are. I wouldn't blame you for that. All right. So that was one of the most memorable moments, but obviously we've had an incredible amount of great hunting moments, and obviously a lot more to come. So After the break, we're going to get real deep with Dakota and Q, and it might even get just a little bit emotional. I'm going to discuss a particular day this past January when I had to swallow my pride and I had to open up to these guys about something that was very personal that I had been internalizing for about 2 years, and how that conversation pretty much changed everything for me and eventually inspired the Papa Ron podcast. Hang tight. That very raw and emotional conversation, along with a fun and inspiring conversation with radio DJ legend Matthew Blades. It's all coming up next on the Papa Ron podcast.
The Papa Ron Podcast is brought to you by Dumar Solutions. Dumar Solutions, offering affordable chemical and PPE solutions for any industry. Automotive, industrial, manufacturing, concrete, and asphalt construction. Also offering kitchen cleaners, corrosion control, and specialty coatings. Detergents, cleaners and degreasers, laundry care, floor care, odor control, personal hygiene, and much more. Do more with Dumar. Inquire with any of your needs at DumarSolutions.com. That's DOMARE Solutions.com. Now back to the Papa Ron podcast. Here's Ronnie Phillips.
816-558-6389, 816-558-6389. There's actually been a few people who have texted in on the text line. Give me a second and I will check that right now, because I got pretty excited. This is just the very first podcast and wasn't expecting a whole lot of people checking in. D Long. You guys probably don't know D Long. Sean Luchtel went out and hunted with him. I think they were shooting elk or chasing elk out in Arizona. I met D Long at the premiere several years ago. He checked in with the text, says, "Hey, it's Derek Taylor out in Arizona, wishing you the best of luck with the podcast." Austin Jamison also wishing us love. Austin Jamison is actually the son of Bruce Jamison, who's the taxidermist for Heartland Bowhunter. Oh. Checking in and wishing us luck. I got Kelly, who's checking in from Wisconsin and saying good luck with your new adventure. Can't wait to listen from Wisconsin. So again, 816-558-6389. You can be a part of the show. You can call, leave a message if you ever want to ask questions or make comments, or you can simply just send a text message. So we've got a few minutes here before we got to check in with our special guest tonight, Matthew Blades, former Night Slammer on Mix 93.3. But I wanted to, before talking to him, get into my story. Now, I want you guys to understand that this podcast is going to be a variety of different topics. And again, we talked about that in the beginning of the show. It could be about entrepreneurial business stuff. This could be about mental health. It could be about personal development. I love sports and sports gambling. Naturally, I love hunting and fishing. It could cover any of those topics, and it's not just exclusive to those topics. But there was a reason why the Papa Ron podcast became what it is. I mean, that it actually ever became a thing. It wasn't just one day I woke up, like, I'm really starving to do this radio thing again. I think maybe I'll just do a podcast. That's not really how it works. So if you guys don't mind giving me an opportunity to kind of tell the story, and I don't even really know where to start. I've got this show kind of scripted out. I wanted it to have structure. And then when I got to this bullet point, all it says is my story. So I'm just going to dive into it. I had a health scare and that required me to go to the doctor back in January. And I wasn't sure what that scare was. And I'll back up a little bit and kind of tell you why I got scared. And it kind of goes back several years where I was getting a lot of, or not several years, let's just say a couple of years. I was getting serious fatigue, irritability, and then it just kind of developed to all these really weird things. So let's fast forward a couple of years to this past January. I guess it's when we went to Wyoming. My family, or I should say my daycare for my son, had a COVID scare. And so we weren't sure if we were going to be able to put Rhett in daycare. And it was the same day that we were supposed to be leaving for High Plains Wing Shooters in Wyoming. So I had called you guys and said, I don't know if I'm going to be able to go, but you guys come to my house, get the Honda, get the trailer, go ahead and get on the road. And if I can come later, I'll jump in and I'll just drive up, which is actually what I ended up doing. Found out that the scare was, nothing to be scared of. We could send the kid to daycare the next day. I left at 6:00 at night, drove to Wyoming, 9 hours away. In the middle of nowhere, Nebraska, in the middle of the night, my whole body just started itching. And I mean, it wasn't like it just worked behind my ear and then down the rest of my body. It was, my whole body was on fire, itching, and it lasted for about 3 days. You guys had to remember that.
Oh, yeah.
I was talking about, man, is there a dermatologist in Torrington? Because I cannot get any relief. I don't know why this is happening. It just instantaneously, middle of the night, nowhere, Nebraska, I just started itching. But then 3 days later, it just went away. Really weird. Come back home. I'm home for a couple days. And I have to leave to go to a trade show, otherwise known as SHOT Show, in Las Vegas. And you guys know me. I'm a social butterfly. I worked in radio for 22 years. I like to party. I like to have a good time. I like to gamble. I'm never one to just leave a trade show and then go back to the room and go to sleep. And that's exactly what I did each day that I was in Las Vegas. In the 10 years that I've been going to the SHOT Show, never have I done that. I was beat. And all I wanted to do was go back to the room, and I slept a lot. And everybody was like, what is going on with Ronnie? And it's all, maybe I got COVID, because fatigue is kind of associated with COVID. So go out the very last night with Logan and Chris and a few of the guys, and I'm making myself go out even though I'm tired. And then they later say, hey, let's go to this one nightclub. And I'm like, guys, I can't do it. I don't have the energy. It's like 10:30. I'm like, I'm just going to go back to the room and go to sleep, which I did. Woke up early. We got an early flight the next day. And when I say early flight, it's a 9:00 flight. I got A boarding, and I'm in the second row, and I'm sitting in the window, and I feel perfectly fine. I'm well rested. It's not like I partied all night. It's not like I got drunk or, hammered or whatever. And it's a full flight like it typically is going to and from Vegas. And I'm feeling perfectly fine flipping through social media on my phone until the guy hits the middle seat. When the guy hits the middle seat, and let me just say this, the guy was perfectly normal. He wasn't overweight. It's not like he smelled really bad. When he hit the middle seat, I went to a full-fledged panic attack. I was sweating. I was hyperventilating. I couldn't breathe. I felt like my chest was caving in. I was freaking the F out. I quickly asked these gentlemen sitting next to me if they could get up so I could get off the plane. I couldn't get off the plane. I was so scared. It was like, I need my mommy scared. I go up to the flight attendant and I say, ma'am, I don't know what's going on here, but I'm having a panic attack and I don't know why. I have flown a lot. Hell, I flew to Hawaii for our honeymoon in the middle seat. That's a several-hour flight. I've never had a panic attack before. And so she says, step off the plane, get some air, which I eventually then calmed down, but I'm flying back now and I'm thinking to myself, something is not right. I've had this fatigue issue. I've been, I felt off. I've had depression, I've had deep, dark, and we'll get into that in just a minute, but I've had really dark, bad thoughts. And I'm just getting, like, each day I'm going and I'm falling into a worse place. Now I'm having this itching attack. I don't want to go out in the night in Vegas. And now I'm having a panic attack on the plane. So I schedule an appointment with the doctor. I go into the doctor, and he's been my doctor for 20 some years. And I tell him what's going on. And I'm thinking I'm going to get blood work and CT scans and all of this stuff. And he actually says, Ronnie, man, you've got depression. You've got depression, and you have been internalizing your depression and all of the stuff that you've been going through, which I've not even touched on all of the stuff that I went through in the last 2 years. But you've been battling that and internalizing that for so long that it is now physically taking over your body, and you need to get chemically balanced. And I was, I think, even more depressed after hearing that, because now, being a man, I wasn't strong enough to actually fight this issue that I had, because as men, we're told, just buck up, deal with it.
Throw some dirt on it.
Exactly. So I got to wrap up this story because Matthew Blades is going to be jumping on here in just a second. As a matter of fact, he's on. Let me just add him to the stream. Matthew, can you hear me, buddy?
I sure can, man.
I'm finishing up a segment real quick, so stand by. I'm finishing telling my story, and then we're going to bring you on here real quick, okay?
I'm hanging back. Dude.
Okay, just hang tight.
I'll just be listening.
Fantastic. So, anyway, fast forward, then I'm now being told by my doctor that I have depression, and that all of this anxiety and stuff is stuff from internalizing for the last 2 years. And I'm having a hard time even coping with that. And I'm like, man, I got to get this off my chest. I don't know how to talk about it. I'm scared to talk about it. I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed that I am such a puss that I cannot deal with this stuff. I have to ask for help. And you guys I'll never forget this day for the rest of my life. We were out by Lone Jack and we were hunting and filming a segment for Heartland Waterfowl.
Rainy day.
It was a rainy day. It was just you two and Nate Meyer and I. And the birds were holding tight. They weren't flying. And you know how it is. We're just sitting in the blind, shooting the breeze. And then there was a quiet moment. And I just felt this weight on my heart, like I need to say something. And I said to you guys, I said, hey, I need to tell you something. And, maybe Dakota, maybe you can kind of express what you remember about that conversation.
I just remember you saying, you telling us about, the depression stuff, and that you were kind of like in a spot to where you're like, I don't feel motivated about anything. I don't feel, I'm looking for some direction. I need something to be fired up about. I need something to, light my fire again.
Right.
And I remember this legitimately acting like I had a WWE chair in my hands, because I've been saying this for years now that you need to start a podcast. I remember saying to you and acting like I was hitting you over the head and said, how many times I got to hit you over the head with this podcast stuff? Like,
right.
But my thing from the beginning has always been like passions and skill set. Like, you've got the skill set and you have the passion for it. Like, when those things align. And I always thought that would be the perfect thing to ignite some sort of just anything that would get you fired up about something. So,
well, the other part of this that we haven't discussed yet was that it was at the same time that I was going through all this, my wife and I found out that we were pregnant. And not only were we pregnant, but she was 7 months pregnant,
right.
and we didn't know it. And now, surprise, you've got 2 months to prepare for a new baby. And we had just had a baby back in a year ago. It was actually 12 months before. The stars were perfectly aligned not to know. So I'm in absolute complete freak out mode. Like, what is going on with my life? Like, I cannot do anything right. Like, I can't catch a break.
Yeah,
that's
you were in like sensory overload that day. It was just like too much stuff at all at the wrong time.
Right. So all of that being said, Dakota pretty much just got up in my face and was like, bro, I've been telling you for years to do a podcast. I've got 22 years of radio experience, and I'm not trying to say that I was ever the greatest radio personality in the world, but I had the years of experience that gave me the confidence to do something like this. And with, let me back up one thing though. After that hunt that morning, you guys filled me with love. I mean, and this is where I get a little bit of emotional, because I was so scared to say anything. I was so ashamed. And I was afraid of what people were going to think. When there was a time in my life when I didn't give a damn what anybody thought. I beat to my own drum. And I think that was part of where I was able to succeed in life, because I just did me. Somewhere along the way, I let the fear of what other people thought of me creep into my head. You called me that night and you made me cry my eyes out, because you called me and you said, hey, man, and I'm thinking you're calling me about the Wyoming or about another trip or something that we had to do. And you're like, bro, I just want you to know that you've been on my heart and you've been on my mind, and I am scared for you, because we talked about while we were out there that I had suicidal thoughts. Now, I don't think I ever had the balls to go through with it, because I love my kids too much. But there was times where I feel like I can't win, and maybe it would just be easier if I was dead. And I told you guys that. And you called me that night and said, man, I love you. I'm here for you. You've been a mentor to me. And if there's any way I can be there for you, I want to be there. And I was like, let's do this podcast thing. I don't know what I'm doing, but I need to be in a circle of people that I can trust, that I know that I can love, and I can not be ashamed to talk about what's going on here. And so here we are. This is actually the Papa Ron podcast is because of a moment that I was in the field with these guys. And I was at my most vulnerable moment when I finally opened up and expressed myself. And Dakota was the guy who stepped up and said, dude, we're going to do this podcast, and called me later that night and just, gave me your love and support and encouragement, and gave me peace of mind to know that I don't need to be ashamed. And that is what has brought the Papa Ron podcast to what it is here today.
Yeah. You were on my heart. And, when I remember calling you, I remember saying, I don't let this kind of stuff slide. When you're felt called to, reach out to someone, You don't set that aside. So that's kind of what stemmed that phone call of just, I've been there. Like, I understand where you're at, and I'm glad that, that conversation was had.
I am too, because I'm having a lot of damn fun doing this. So that's my story. That's how the Papa Rod podcast became what it is today. And there was another very pivotal moment in this process of me trying to figure out who I am and what is this depression thing and how do I get through this. And with that being said, I am so stoked to talk with Matthew Blades here in just a bit. I've looked up to this guy for years as a radio personality talent. For those who are listening or maybe watching on the YouTube channel and from Kansas City, you might remember him from his days on Mix 93.3. A couple months ago, Matt and I reconnected after about 20 years, and it wasn't to discuss the old radio days. When we come back, we're going to discuss the old radio days some, but we're going to also share why he left radio, what it is that he's doing now, and why it is that it's so important for me to have him as the first guest on the all-new Papa Ron podcast.
You're listening to the Papa Ron podcast. Keep up to date on new podcasts, new discussion topics, and future casts. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Search Papa Ron podcast and be sure to like and leave a comment. Now, back to the show. Here again is your host, Ronnie Phillips.
Don't forget, next week on the show, we're going to be talking about the annual Heartland Premier Charity Golf Classic. The golf is on Friday, June 3rd, with the premiere the next night, Saturday, June 4th. We'll be discussing the charity that we've been chosen, which is the Restoration House of Greater Kansas City that houses, protects, and rehabilitates victims of human trafficking. That's next week on the Papa Ron podcast, so don't miss it. I am so stoked, so freaking stoked about this guest. Let's do this, because this is going to be a weekly feature on the Papa Ron podcast. It's called Ronnie's Radio Rewind.
Now on the Papa Ron podcast, it's time for Ronnie's Radio Rewind.
Uh-oh, you ready? Cause nobody can do. Shut up. Like Black Eyed Peas and Jay Timberlake can do. Where is the love? It's number one tonight on Mix 93.3.
Yeah!
Oh, man. Black Eyed Peas, Justin Timberlake, Where is the Love? To Mix 93.3 Music. I'm Matthew Blades. Who are you?
Nothing.
Oh, that's Justin Timberlake. We're going to hear from him in just 1 second. Who are you?
This is Sarah.
What's up, Sarah? You're call number 9.
Awesome.
Nice work. You got the new 50 DVD and the new 8 Mile DVD. As long as you can tell me, what was song number 8 tonight?
8, Don't Want to Try, Frankie J.
Nice. Number 5.
21 Questions, 50 Cent.
Number 3 tonight.
Magic 6, 50 Cent and Little Kim.
And the number 1 song of the evening.
Justin Timberlake and Black Eyed Peas with Where's the Love.
Nice work.
Yes, you win.
Congratulations. 50 Cent's new DVD called The New Breed, 8 Mile on DVD, which stars the Eminem and Eminem. Do you have your tickets to Red, White, and Boom yet?
No, I don't.
Girl, look it up online, mix93.com. You can listen to Rocket and Teresa. They'll have more tomorrow morning, okay?
All right, thanks.
Nice work. Can you give me big kisses right here?
Mwah.
Back at you.
There's more coming, buddy.
What is that? That is just an unbelievable moment back there. Where did you find that?
2 weeks. Hardly wait. Who's this?
Connie.
You know, I have an aunt named Connie, and I was fascinated to learn at the age of 12 that her real name is Constance. Is that the case with you, too?
Yes, it is.
You like the name Constance, or you pretty much go with Connie all the time?
I go with Connie. Everybody else calls me Constance, but I hate that name.
Too close to constipated.
KMXP Kansas City.
All about the music.
More people listen to Mix 93.3 than any other radio station.
Just a variety of music.
Kansas City making us number one.
It's 9 o'clock. My name is Matthew Blades, number 1 hit music this hour from bootleg performer Kelly Clarkson, Matchbox 20, and Mr. Eminem. Now, usually I don't do this, but
I love this.
Matthew Blades.
This is so good.
On Mix
Check this out.
93.3.
Blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah.
blah, blah. All right, so this is so cool. Well, it's kind of cool. So I have this friend of mine who is a former intern on my show.
You remember this?
And she started kind of IMing this guy. No. And they started brewing into this telephone romance. He lives in California. She doesn't. And, well, they decided that they would hook it up. And that they would decide to meet each other. They had sent pictures, but who can trust them, I guess? I was very scared for my little friend Margaret. And turns out they hung out over the weekend, and finally I've got her on the telephone. What exactly went down now?
Nothing. We just didn't click. There was no chemistry. It was weird. It was
he wasn't attractive.
We spent the entire weekend together.
He wasn't attractive.
No, that wasn't it at all.
He didn't think you were attractive.
No, that definitely wasn't it, please.
Come on.
No, it was just weird. Like, there was no sparks. Like, and we tried, dude. We tried 2 days. And then finally,
We tried to do it. We
He was like, yeah, it is different.
You just let it go.
So, yeah, we talked about it, and we were like, dude, we should just be friends. And then, I mean, I still spent the rest of the weekend with him, like, the next 2 days. And
Did you sleep in the same bed
yeah.
the whole time?
Yep.
Did he try to...
At first, but we were trying to be, like, together. Yeah, and then, like, after, no.
You couldn't do it.
No.
You're like, you know what? You're not the one.
Yeah.
I'm holding out for my boy Mateo.
Obviously, because you are the one.
That's right.
All right, baby. Well, go ahead. I know you got to do.
All right, cool. Hang on just 1 second. More show right after this. Sun on 93.3.
Oh, Mr. Matthew Blades! Woo!
That is incredible, man.
Dude.
That is absolutely incredible.
That is so fun. That is so fun. You were doing nights, I think, about the same time I was doing nights over at Q104. 2003-ish, 2004. Does that sound about right?
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right, man. That was a walk down memory lane. And I'll tell you, that former intern, Margaret, went on to work in New York City for
Wow.
United Stations Radio Network. She became
What?
the vice president of programming. She left, and now she works for a boutique film agency, and she designs sets.
Wow. Look
And
at
she's
the
still a
impact you had.
badass.
Look at the impact you had on her life.
Oh, listen, she's one of a handful, man. I just, I just really took good care of my interns. I was so lucky because when I got into radio, I had a guy named Jerry Dixon and Tony Fly. They were kind of my two
Tony
dudes.
Fly from KDWB, Minneapolis, St. Paul.
That's it, man.
Oh,
That's it.
God. How do you not love Tony Fly?
Yeah. So Tony was my dude, and we hung out a lot, and he was really, really helpful. And he just, he was one of those guys who took time. He listened to my air checks. He showed me how to do things. And then Jerry got to a point where, he would lay breaks on reel to reel, and he would just,
Wow.
I probably should, I'm going to say it anyways. He would just leave for like an hour and I would run the radio station.
Right.
But that kind of confidence that he put in me, dude, I mean, it set me up for a hell of a run.
So, are you from the Twin Cities?
Yeah. Minneapolis is home.
So were you interning for Tony?
I was.
That's where it all started.
Yeah, so it all started even smaller than that. It started at a little place called the Bebop Cafe I think it's in Blaine, Minnesota. It's like a nightclub / sports bar.
Okay.
And I was doing teen night, and Tony Fly came and did his 2-hour appearance,
Yeah.
and we became total buddies. And I was just
You
like,
were total super fan, though. You were total super fan. No?
What's interesting is I didn't totally know I wanted to be in radio yet, but I went in to see him, and I was like, okay, I could see
cool.
myself in
Yeah.
this space.
Wow.
I could see myself in this space. And, Tony, but that was back then when everybody had 15 interns, and we all went on to have, great careers. I mean,
Sure.
I think of every one of Tony's people, man. And even the guys that did make it to big markets went to places like Raleigh and spent 15 years. You know what I mean? So they had these great success stories.
So you were also, because I know a lot of people that came from the Minneapolis market did a little time at KCLD. And I think I saw that you
That was
did
my
some.
first station.
Right. So Wes McCain, are you familiar with who Wes McCain is?
yeah.
Wes McCain, really good friend of mine. He was at WIFC at the time that I was at WDEZ in Wausau, Wisconsin.
Okay.
And then, of course, he went on to Milwaukee. I saw that you were in Milwaukee for a time. Were you at 103.7 KISS FM?
No, I went to Milwaukee to replace the legendary Reitman and Miller, who were on WKTI.
Okay.
And that didn't work out so well. So
it's
okay. It worked out great, actually. We ended up coming to Phoenix. Which was perfect.
Washington, D.C. Was that before? I can't remember. That was after Kansas City, right?
I did 2 tours in D.C., man. I got fired from the same radio station twice.
How did they fire Matthew Blades?
Station went off the air.
Okay.
The first time they flipped format, and it was a funny story because they brought us all in, and we had like this 10 o'clock meeting, which for a night guy is like murder. And so immediately I'm like, something's up. And so we get in, the program director's got this consultant sitting at the table, and he's talking about how the station's going to sound different and we're going to play different music and this and that. And everything he's saying is the only thing in my head is none of this is what you do. None of this is what you do. And I was young and hot, and so I left. I kind of walked out of the building and came back about 4:00 and knocked on my PD's door, and I was like, "Hey, man, we need to talk." And he goes, "We do. Have a seat." And he got up and he shut the door, and that's when he said, "Yeah, you're done. You're done here. We'll pay out the rest of your contract." But
wow, at least they did that.
Oh yeah, I had solid. Both times, man. I worked for a great company in Bonneville. And they were just exceptional to work for in both cases. Both cases, they honored my contracts and to the nth degree took care of us.
Right. And so then you came to Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
How long were you at Mix?
So I did Mix for about 2.5 years, and then DC called me back. They had revamped the radio station that I was then on and wanted me to come back and do their morning show.
Was JR your PD at Mix, or was it I just had it in my head. Who was your PD?
Oh, no, it was John Zellner.
John Zellner, thank you. Who's now, is he still at Sirius XM?
No. John pretty much runs the show at iHeartRadio now.
That's right. I did hear that.
He's El Presidente.
Oh, good for him. Solid dude. I always love John. So
John's one of my closest friends to this day.
Good.
And the reason I came to Kansas City was because John said to me, "You're going to meet your wife here."
He said the same thing to Lucas too.
Did he?
Yes, Lucas told me the same story.
This guy's a trickster.
But you did, right?
I did meet my wife. Yeah. I did. I met Nick Lee, who was a former Kansas City Chiefs cheerleader. She went to KU. She grew up in Chicago and Oklahoma. But yeah, man, she was waiting there for me.
Incredible. Well, he was right. John was right.
He was right. He was right.
We got a lot of deep emotional stuff that we're going to get into, but I have to ask because I'm a radio geek and I got Q. And by the way, I'm sorry. This is the very first podcast. We're videoing this. We got a Black Magic camera set up over here. I wish we would have had it set up in the feed so that you could see the entire studio and you could see these guys. Unfortunately, we weren't able to make that happen. So these guys, actually, they're like, this guy's geeking out on radio right now, but they're probably so. Are you guys enjoying it? Like,
yeah, I'm impressed.
Okay, because this is like, I think anybody who listens to radio or has actually worked in radio probably are the only ones who probably care about this conversation. But what is probably one or two of your favorite moments? And I'm asking because a majority of the people who are probably going to be listening to this podcast are those who are residing in Kansas City. So for those who remember you from the days at Mix 93.3, give me one or two of your very favorite moments of working at that station. Besides when you take a call from Justin Timberlake and he says nothing.
Yeah. So, all right. So probably my favorite story is the story of me going there to interview. Again, John's telling me that, I'm going to meet my wife there. The only thing I care about is getting to Chicago. I've left Washington, D.C., which I think is market 8 at the time. I've got a 6-figure salary. I'm making $400 an hour on all my appearances. Like, my life is pretty good. I'm a single dude.
Nice.
And I want to keep that rolling. And so I want to get to Chicago where I think I can double or triple that. And that's the only thing that I have in my mind. So anyways, I board the plane. I get to Kansas City. I meet John for dinner, and John brings a couple of record guys with him. And the record guys are a little bit more my speed. They're a little bit more my age. And I don't know if John said, show them a good time, or if we all just ended up having a good time.
No, those record guys know how to have a good time. You know this. I know this.
This was back in the day when I wasn't afraid of any kind of booze.
Right.
And so we go hard. And John and I have it worked out that the next morning at 9:30 or 10 o'clock, as soon as he's done with the Rocket and Teresa morning show, him and I are going to meet.
Okay.
So my alarm goes off the next morning at 8:30, and
brutal.
I feel like death.
Well, sure.
like death. I feel like I'm gonna die. I feel like
Yes.
I'm gonna throw up. It's the whole thing. This is a disaster. I can't even believe this.
Get
If
me
you're
out
just
of
tuning
Kansas
in right
City
now, you're getting
immediately.
Such a glorious story. You're
Yeah.
getting such a beautiful moment from me.
I love it. I love it. Keep
This is
going.
one of the many reasons I don't drink anymore.
Okay.
But so anyways, I get to the radio station at 9:30. I walk into the front desk and I say, I need your restroom, please. Because I can feel my stomach not doing all right.
Right.
I go in the bathroom. I throw up.
No way.
If you're listening from the outside, it probably sounds like
So
I'm dying.
at the radio station. So
I'm
it was
at the radio station in the bathroom, right
Westport?
outside the studio.
Westport location. So you're at the
Yes.
you're in the bathroom right behind where all of the homeless people would come and try to steal the cigarette butts, right?
I'm so
You're
embarrassed.
in,
right
I
now.
know exactly. I I can't believe this story. This is great.
So I get sick, and that makes you feel better.
For
So
sure.
I get sick. I go. I see somebody there. I ask for a piece of gum. I go get a cup of coffee. I go in and sit in John's office, and I have the job 30 minutes later.
Unreal.
That's a great story. That's a great story.
That is a great story. I'm surprised you
Um,
took the job, feeling like
yeah.
I mean, you must have had, despite how awful you felt that morning, you must have knew or remembered that you had a damn good time the night before.
We did. I don't even remember what we did that night.
You don't like? Were you at America's Pub down below the radio station? You don't remember where
we
you're at?
started somewhere on the plaza.
Okay.
And I think we might have ended somewhere down in the River Market.
Okay, that's awesome.
But it was really good, man. I'll tell you that. So that's one of my favorite stories from Mix. My other favorite story from Mix is the night that my in-laws, my soon-to-be in-laws, are coming to town. So I've just met my wife, my soon-to-be wife, Nicolay. We're engaged and all, or we're not. Wait. Maybe we're not engaged yet. We're just dating at this point. And her parents are flying to town, and I don't know any of this, by the way. So I'm just doing my night show. And on this particular night show, I decide, this is back when sex parties are a big thing. I decide that I'm going to have one of the hosts from these sex parties on, and I'll invite a few girls to come down, and they can just kind of talk about this stuff, and we'll just kind of have this open dialogue. And, keep in mind, man, like I'm a night guy. I'm 28.
Working top 40 radio, so you got a very young crowd listening. Yeah.
Absolutely. My people are banging. I know it. So
I love it.
So-
I love it.
So we're doing this show. And the next day we go to meet her folks for dinner, and her mom opens up with, "That was a pretty interesting show last night."
Oh no.
It literally was the first exposure her mom and dad had to me.
Oh,
She picked her parents up
no.
at the airport and she said, "I'm dating a guy. He's a radio dude." And she turned on the show. Isn't that great?
Okay, so you know that the in-laws are coming, or the potential future in-laws are coming into town, right?
Yeah.
You know what you're going to do on this show this night. Do you not discuss, like, hey, when you pick them up, you might not want to tune in tonight. Like any other night would be good, but this is not the first impression that I want to be giving your parents.
Oh man,
You didn't
I
plan
made
that
a
one
deal
out
with
very
the
well.
I made a deal with the devil a long time ago that the audience came before anybody else.
Yeah,
And,
that's the smart way. Yep, I get it. I get it. I
and
forget
it was
that.
one of those things where it was like, I'll tell you what. If anything, when that feeling came, that was a clear message to me to go for it. That was like that was the body sending me the signal saying, yes, that's authentic. Yes, do
Yeah.
that.
I love it. I love
Right?
it. Well, thanks for
So-
sharing those stories, man. And you've worked in radio for nearly 3 decades. And after
know.
all of those years of success and then going on to host, I mean, it is hard. I mean, just for the guys in the room who don't understand the industry. Like,
Who's in the room, by the way? I want to say hi to them.
yeah, here. Well, let me do this. See if I can. Am I doing it right? Can you see? There's Quentin. Did I
hey,
pass?
Quentin.
There's Dakota.
Hey, Dakota.
Right on. So they're on my they're producers and contractors that we hire for Heartland Waterfowl.
on.
And as you heard the story, they're a big reason of why I started the Papa Ron podcast. Anyway, what I was getting ready to say was that these guys don't understand that, much like yourself, I was also doing nights with, kind of that slammer personality, phoners and bits and bang, 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 and you're in and you're out and you're just continually engaging with your listeners. That's what radio was. I love doing radio, but I got to a point where I didn't love doing nights, and I wanted to work my way up to, getting into a better day slot, because day slots paid better, at least on country. So, but you can't do slammer radio on middays. It's very, very much more vanilla.
Yeah.
Where I'm going with this is that you evolved by taking that personality from doing nights and then ended up getting a morning show in freaking Phoenix, Arizona, which that is an incredible radio market, no matter what genre you're talking about. Very competitive. At least so I spent a little time in Tucson, so I'm very familiar with the Phoenix market. And I just loved it. I loved that market. And it was just like, it's like that first time you go into a large market radio and you listen to what radio is supposed to sound like, and you're just like inspired, like, yes, that's what Phoenix was for me. So anyway,
that's what all the big markets smell and taste like to me. You know, it's just, I tell everybody when you get to that level, when everybody's a pro, when everybody is a pro, when everybody is standard over feelings, it's a completely different situation. And there is something cool about that. You're right.
I love it. But you decided that even after landing a morning show in Phoenix, Arizona, that maybe this isn't what you're going to do anymore. So basically, I'm going to put you on the spot here, and I want you to tell us your story on why after 3 decades of being incredibly successful. And by the way, an inspiration to me. I've always been a super fan of Matthew Blades. I never wanted to be that super geek about it. So I just stalked you on social platforms and whatever occasionally, because they always had the webcam on the websites, and then they would have the way that you could instant message. And every once in a while I'm doing my show at the same time you're doing your show, I'm stalking you. It's like, hey man, love your show. You're doing a great job, whatever. And then Matthew was like, thanks, man.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, pal. He was busy talking to Justin Timberlake, man.
Yo, listen, man, I had shit going on.
Batty girls calling in. You don't want to talk to Ronnie Phillips at the country station over here down by Winstead's. Anyway, man, tell us the story. Let's get into it deep. Why, after 3 decades of being incredibly successful in radio and living in a beautiful market like Phoenix, Arizona, why did you walk away?
Yeah. Well, the answer is my body kind of started talking to me pretty loudly. And I got to a point where I couldn't ignore it anymore. That's really the height of it all, right? It was in, oh man, I guess we go back almost a year to the date where I kind of felt, and I don't know, I kind of joined late, so I didn't hear some of what you said early on, but some of that unraveling that you talked about, some of that.
You and I had a conversation though, and we had very, very similar stories and symptoms.
Yeah, certainly. So I end up getting something called shingles, and I have no idea about this shingles business. To me, it's like some shit old people get, and I'm not there yet, right? I'm not supposed to get shingles. But what I found out was that, for anybody who had chicken pox growing up, if you have like some stressful episode in your life, there's a really good chance that it could activate the shingles. So shingles they're like these, it's like this weird rash that comes on your torso or your face. Dude, I'm going to tell you right now. So I was lucky enough to get them on my face, which was out of control painful. So I love to articulate this because there's a lot of people who hear those ads for like the shingles shot and and they scoff at it. And I'll be honest, I was probably one of them. So when you get shingles, what they are is, think about it like this. Every single time you move, you have an inflection, you smile, you talk, you breathe. It's like an electrocution on that little sore, that little rash part. So if you have 15 of those on your face and one in your eye, every time you move, it's like, it's unbelievably unbearing. People always say it's the worst pain they've ever felt. And I'll tell you, I don't know if it's the worst pain you've ever felt, but it's a really interesting, deep neurological kind of pain. I mean, it feels like it's gripping your brain. And So I went off the radio for 3 weeks because I couldn't talk. And you know what happened in that 3 weeks was I started to feel pretty good about myself. I was like, all right, I got some rest. I got some sleep. I started taking care of myself. I really just kind of paid attention to myself. And lo and behold, 3 weeks later, I felt like a brand new human. And I need to back up a little bit because about 4 months before all of this, the radio station I'm working for comes to me and they say, hey, listen, times are tough. COVID numbers are here. The company's got a formula. Here's what the formula looks like. And it ended up being pretty close to 50% of my salary that I was being asked to take a reduction on. And, I'm at a point in my career where taking 50% away of my salary still leaves me with a really modest salary, right? Like still what most people would, I think, be very happy to make. But it's a very different lifestyle for us. There's no way around it.
Right.
Just a few years prior to that, my wife and I have just bought our dream home. We're doing all the things. The kids are doing everything. We're saying no to basically nothing. And we're running like hell, man. We're just absolutely go, go, go. Just like I think so many people were. We wore that badge of busy like it was a badge of honor or something like that, So then let's go after the shingles. So after the shingles, I feel better and I feel really good. And I say to my company, hey, I'll take on some more radio stations and I'll make up some of that money that, y'all just took away. And my good friend.
Was this
John,
an iHeart? So this is an iHeart station. So then they're syndicating the show from Phoenix?
Nope, they weren't. It was something totally different within them that I did. It was a completely different, a separate effort that I was recording, and I was doing kind of a version of syndication for them on the East Coast in some smaller markets.
Okay.
And then I was given an opportunity to do the night show in my hometown of Minneapolis on Cities 97, which was one of my favorite radio stations ever growing up.
Sure.
And so I took that too. And so I'm doing my morning show from 5 to 10, and then I'm doing these 9 radio stations, and then I'm doing the night show on Cities. And they put a studio in my home so that I didn't have to stay at the station, the entire day. But, man, I'm starting to I'm working from 4:30 in the morning until 6 o'clock at night. I'm still talking. And I was getting really worn down. And if I'm being really truthful, I'm starting to have some moments here where I'm feeling really unstable. I'm not good in my own skin. I'm pretty sure I don't like what's going in and around me anymore. I feel like I'm just I'm grinding. I feel like all day, all night, all I'm doing is working. I'm never reaping any of the benefits from having this job and our life. And, my wife's busy. My kids are busy. I'm not seeing them. I'm just I'm frustrated. And I'm just thinking, what am I doing? Why am I continuing to deal? Why do I continue to put up with this? Why don't I find something different? Why don't I do something? Right. But I had a year left on my contract, and, I am a man of integrity, and sure. I a lot of that stuff has left our world, and I still think there's value in holding on to your word. And so I tried to hold on to my word, and I worked like hell until I got my first panic attack. And then I got my second panic attack. And for anybody listening that's ever experienced panic attacks, how just violent they can seem and feel. And the scary part for me, Ron, was that they came during the night. So they were nocturnal panic attacks. They're what they're called. And so both times, 2:30 in the morning, boom, out of a dead sleep, just wake up with your heart racing 1,000 miles an hour, feeling like you're having a heart attack. It's unbelievable. So I kind of recover from those 2 episodes. And that's really when the inner dialogue is in my head. And I'm really, really, really in my head right now. And I am, as a result, probably a complete prick to just about everybody around me, because I just don't have capacity for anything, for really anything. That's just the truth. Barely myself. and I just kind of have this moment with my brain where I'm kind of thinking, what are we doing? And some of that stuff you alluded to earlier, is it just going to be better if I throw myself in front of this enormous truck right now while I'm on my walk?
Yeah.
Would that just be easier for everybody? And, of course the answer's no, because as I tell people all the time, suicide is suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem.
Yeah.
And so, I like you didn't think that was in the cards for me, and knew that I wouldn't go down that road, but man, also kind of felt like I was a pretty smart guy. And I'd done some therapy before in the early or in the late 90s and the early 2000s, and tried to get some things under control. And I think I alluded to earlier that I don't drink anymore. And so I did some therapy after I set alcohol down, just to kind of have some help along the way. But really then that third panic attack hit. And on that third panic attack, dude, I mean to tell you that I was convinced I was dying. And what your audience needs to know and understand about me is that when my father was 47 years old, he had a heart attack and he died right in front of me. And I tried to save my dad's life. I tried CPR. I tried everything, and I couldn't save my dad's life. So you can only imagine sort of the mark that's going to leave on somebody. I mean, you're a father, right? When I tell this story to other men, I say, you're a father. Think about this. You're a dad. Which one of your kids do you want to watch you die? None of them.
Right.
That's horrible. That's horrible.
Yeah. Makes me want to throw up just thinking about it.
Dude, it is nauseating. It's just one of those things that nobody should have to experience. We all know our parents are going to die. We know they're going to go before us. But, as I write in my book, it's like, why did I have to be there? Why did I have to be there? And on top of that, why did I have to be the one that tried so hard to save his life and couldn't? And there's two answers to that question. The answers are, because I had to be there to know everything happened, and so I can help other people heal. That's it. That's it. So I get that third panic attack. My heart's going off. I'm 47 years old, the same age my dad is when he died. I'm pretty sure I'm dead too, right? This is what's in my head.
Sure.
So the crazy thing is that I go, so if you like, I'll explain what happens. So 2:30 in the morning, boom, pop out of bed, heart's racing. I can't get myself under control. I'm completely erratic. I don't know what your experience was with yours. Because you had a panic attack, correct?
On an airplane.
On an airplane. That's right.
Yeah.
So mine was like, you start speaking almost in tongues. You don't make any sense. You're just pacing. I remember turning on the shower and then not wanting to shower. And then I was like, I'll take a bath. And I got undressed and I got in the bathtub and then I got out and I put on my bathrobe. And then we walked around the block a couple of times. And my wife was just trying to get me to hey, just calm down. Just bring it back.
Right.
But I literally couldn't. And it 2.5 hours later, it's 5 a.m. My morning show is on, and we pre-recorded the first hour. And I got a decision to make. Do I go to work or do I go get some help? And like every stupid man listening, I went to work and did my job. And I pushed through, and I thought, well, it'll be okay. I'll figure this thing out later. And I start talking about what happened on my morning show. And I start describing the things that I'm feeling. Next thing you know, the phones are lighting up.
Blowing up.
And it's doctors, nurses,
wow,
ER physicians. And every one of them is saying, you need to go to the emergency room right now because you might be having a stroke.
Whoa.
And I thought, are you kidding me? What in the world? And I don't know, so anybody who's kind of been going down the spiral knows, you get to that, I think you said it early on. You said you get to that point where you're like, what the fuck is going on with my life?
Yeah.
Why can't I get this together?
Yeah.
Another hit?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? I'm having a stroke now?
Right.
So my wife and I go to the hospital, and because of all the heart history in my family and the fact that I'm the same age as my dad who died from a sudden heart attack, we get a front row seat to the hospital. We're hooked up to every single monitor. We'll run every single heart test under the planet Earth. They call in the head cardiologist from the hospital to come in and look at my stuff to make sure that I'm okay. And every single test comes back and says, cheers, Mateo. Your body's fine.
Cheers, man. So now you're even more upset because you don't have any answers.
Really, I'm at a place where I say, I know what I have to do now is the truth. For
really?
Me.
So you did have, the answer was you needed to step away from radio.
It was, I didn't know I needed to step away from radio. What I did know is that I had to go to work with the real reason that I had all this anxiety and depression to begin with.
Gotcha.
That's what I had to do. That stuff wears us down like you cannot even believe. I've come to learn doctors have a name for it. It's called oxidative stress. And so when we have a stressful response in our life, whether it's a fight with our spouse or a tense moment at work, there's an energy release in our body. And if we don't do something to move that space in a healthy way, it will find its way to all the crap in your body. That's why we get neck aches. It's why we get back aches. It's why our hip hurts. It's why our knee hurts. And because you notice those pains that I just referenced, they're not there 24/7. Usually they come and go. They come with your stress. And so my body was literally screaming at me, Ron, right? It's going, hey, buddy, we're going to give you shingles. Wake up.
Yeah.
Hey, buddy, we're going to give you a panic attack. Wake up.
Yeah.
Okay, you didn't wake up for the first one. Well, here's another one. You don't want to wake up? Okay, here's the third one. We're going to make this one really big.
Yep.
So that was July. It's what I call my crash day. Was July 12th last summer, where I checked out of the hospital at 2:30 in the afternoon and went home. And the very next day was calling places and trying to find some retreat that I could go to where I might get some holistic healing and try to find myself again, because I felt completely lost. Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of similarity, other than the fact that I only had one panic was enough for me. One panic enough for me.
Should have been enough for me too, Ron. Should have been enough for me too.
Before I think you came on here, I was telling these guys, like, it was so scary. It was I need my mommy scared. Like, I'm so scared. I don't want to see or talk to anybody but the one person that I can trust the most. Bro, man, I mean, I guess I'm so touched right there by your story and can relate to it so much that it's kind of hard for me to transition to the next topic. But I want to talk about how and why you are here tonight with us on this podcast, because I came across a post of yours on LinkedIn on February 23rd. And that content hit me between the eyes. It was a post that you were going to be a keynote speaker at the resiliency mind and body connection and so there was like
that a couple of weeks ago, the mind body connection to pain. It was a resiliency weekend.
So there was like you posted what looked or appeared to be a magazine article that was interviewing you about your experience, your struggle.
Yes, sir.
And so, being the super fan of Matthew Blades, the radio DJ, I clicked on those pictures and I started reading. And the more I kept reading, the more I was like, whoa, I can relate to this. These symptoms are like very similar to mine. I then later commented on it and said, man, I'm like, it was almost like empathy that I felt for you, because I had been feeling it. And I was like, bro, I had no idea that you were going through this. I kind of have the stuff going on. You got back to me so quick and you're like, let me know if I can ever help. And I was like, yeah, let's jump on a call sometime. And maybe it was like a couple days later, you and I got on a call and we talked for maybe 45 minutes to an hour or so. Maybe it was longer. I really don't remember. But we shared each other's stories that in many ways were very similar. And that it was an eye-opening moment for me. And I'll tell you why. It was three things. Because one, I related to someone who had the same issues. Two, because you were so genuine and empathetic and committed to being there for me. And three, because I felt like you were so comfortable in your skin and you had no shame in telling your story. And I was still in the infancy stages of my battle, that I was still feeling shame, and I was scared, and I'm supposed to be a man. And I told these guys earlier, I was like, what are people going to think? Why is Ronnie depressed? Like, why is Ronnie experiencing this? He's got nothing. Look at him. He's got a TV show. He's got this going on and that's going on. Like, that pussy, what has he got to be depressed about? He's feeling sorry for himself. Get up, like, I'm scared to talk to people because this is what I'm thinking I'm going to hear back. And when I'm sharing this with you, I'm just like,
yeah,
thank you. And it gave me the courage to start opening up to people like these guys and other people in my circle. And what I found, not only do people love me and they care about me and they want to be there for me, but guess what? Holy shit, they're going through the same stuff too. Yeah. They have same symptoms now, maybe not as extreme as what you and I had experienced, but they've got some stuff too. And they are having dark moments where they've not, again, you got to be real careful about how you talk about being suicidal. Like, you may not be suicidal, but you might have the thoughts, which is just enough in and of itself. But I've had too many conversations with too many people that I couldn't even count that have said, man, I've been in this spot and I've even considered this. Don't think I have the balls to do it, but I've thought about it. But I've never wanted to talk about it because of X, Y, and Z and some of the stuff that we've talked about here. So I guess with that being said, you gave me hope. And this is why it was so important for me, because everything that I've gone through since January, actually last 2 years, but it really came to the forefront in January, is what started this Papa Ron podcast. This Papa Ron podcast isn't designed to be just about mental health. It's going to be fun. We're going to talk about a lot of different things that I'm passionate about, but I'm passionate about this now because I've endured it. And I have to let the viewers and the listeners understand that the Papa Ron podcast, this is the foundation of why we're here. And these guys helped me out of that hole. You helped me out of that hole, gave me that peace of mind. So because you gave me hope, this is partly why we're here and why I wanted you to be one of the first guests on the show. That said, can you recall a significant moment during your journey that gave you the hope and the confidence to press on? Much like I'm talking about that, like me talking to you, that I finally was like, oh, I can press on.
Yeah. First up, just let me backtrack a little bit and just say that the definition of a man is shifting. And part of the reason that I walked away from my radio career and doubled down on this work that I'm doing right now is to help redefine that. A real man goes to war with his inner demons so that he can be a better husband and a better father and a better brother and a better son and all of those things. Yeah. A real man will go and ask for help when he doesn't have the tools to get things done. You'll walk into Sportsman's Warehouse and you'll buy every fucking tool under the sun to make you a better hunter. But when it comes to your own health, you don't love yourself enough to do that for yourself. Why? That's the question I want men to start figuring out. Why don't you care enough about yourself to want to do this work? And the answer is probably some of what you shared earlier. There's a little bit of guilt. There's a little bit of shame. Somewhere along the way, somebody made you feel those useless emotions.
Yep.
By the way, right? I mean, just absolutely useless. And so people understand the definition. Guilt is how you feel about something. Shame is how you feel about yourself. And if you feel shame about yourself, holy hell, that's a tough thing to come out of, because that's a whole belief system. That's a whole belief system about who you are. And let me give you a real concrete example. I said a few minutes ago that my dad died and I tried to save his life and I couldn't.
Right.
You don't know it then, just like you don't know it while you're going through most traumas. But when you're going through these moments, they go on your permanent record, and there's a certain set of beliefs that get set up in those moments. So, for example, when I'm going through the sequence with my father, the set of beliefs that are getting put in that moment are like things like, you don't know enough, you can't save your dad, you're letting people down, why can't you do more, right? And all of those things, thankfully, mostly from a healthy standpoint, played out in my radio career. And that insecurity of not knowing enough, not being able to be the guy, was almost that motivating factor in the first 15 to 20 years of my career to prove to people that I did know enough.
Sure.
And I was good enough, man.
Yep.
And I could save the world. Right. And so really, really good focused energy there until I got married and had kids and my priorities shifted.
Sure.
And I wanted different things.
Yep.
And I saw my own parents' energy coming out in me and feeling like, oh, I thought you were going to change a couple things about that, you know?
Sure.
So I just wanted to double down on that because there's a lot of courage to raise your hand and say, man, I don't feel like myself right now.
Right.
I don't know what's wrong, but I don't feel like myself right now.
Yeah.
And what we're going to learn, what more people are going to learn, is that it's not that complicated to let a little air out of the tires. On my podcast that I have learned from people who lived it, we just interviewed this woman, Melinda, the other day. And I said to her, okay, when you get triggered, when things happen to you, what do you do? And boom, boom, boom. She had 3 tools in her toolbox right away. She knows exactly what to do when she gets triggered. The problem is that most of us, unless we go do some work, we don't have any tools. We don't have any tools. And so when we get frustrated or angry or somebody pisses us off or somebody cuts in front of us while we're driving to work, we don't have any really good, healthy way to deal with it. We only know what we've been shown. And most of us were raised by dads who were kind of pissed off a lot. Or at least we had a lot of dudes in our life who were big, macho, that kind of male energy.
Yep.
You know what I'm talking about?
Sure.
And so that's what we were shown. So of course that's our example. But now I've got my own boys and I don't want that for them. You know, my boys, since they were little, have been assured that there is 100% of the time where that cry that you're going to have right there is the proper emotion. Don't worry about it, buddy. That's the moment you're supposed to cry. That did hurt. That did hurt. You know, you don't need to hold that back. So anyways, I just wanted to
I
say
appreciate you.
To you and anybody else,
Thank you.
man, that's going to jump into the fire. That takes real courage. And that's a real man right there.
Thank you. Do you have that significant moment though in your journey that really kind of gave you the hope and the confidence to move forward?
Yes. So I learned a lot of tools in my retreat, but one of the biggest tools that I picked up was inner child wounds. You and I discussed this at length. And inner child wounds happen to any of us along the way when we get these big T or little t, right? Big trauma, little trauma moments along the way. And, you know, they're not always big, explosive, somebody dies moments, right? Those are certainly traumatic moments, but, you know, growing up in a house where you never got your dad's affection, or growing up in a house where your mom was always angry, or growing up in a home where one of your parents was mentally unstable and undiagnosed their whole life, and you had to walk on eggshells to figure out how to make them all happy. Like, all these things happen to us along the way. And it's also worth saying that no child is going to have an unmarked, perfect childhood, right? So we take that into consideration. But when these moments happen to us, they go on our permanent record and they become our operating system. So this is what I learned in my retreat, and this will get us to the hope. What I came to learn was, and we can take my dad's example for because it's a great one, and use whatever the hard thing is in your life and use it this same way. But I came to learn that in that moment, all those beliefs were being set up. And so as a result, I'm sort of operating my life based on those beliefs. And that's why I can't say no to people, because I'm always trying to show them that I know more, that I can do it, that I got this. I'm always adding, I'm always doing. And I did that thing that a lot of us do for a while, which is okay, which is like, you know, hey man, like, this is my career. This is what I'm doing right now. I'm in it. And there's a certain time and energy for that, for sure. But for me, man, it just got to be too much. And so the inner child work allowed me to unlock the operating system. Does that make sense? Okay. So now when my boss comes to me and they say, hey, we need you to do this, instead of the inner child operating system who doesn't know as much, who's young, who's foolish in a lot of ways, going, "Oh, I don't know what I should do here. I want to say no, but what if they don't like me?" That's what's going on in your head, right?
Right.
It's like, I need to have a conversation with my mom. Oh my God, what'll happen? She's gonna freak out, man. She's gonna call everybody. What are they gonna say? And you really do. Those are super valid thoughts, but they're inner child thoughts. That's the way children operate. I tell everybody all the time. People say this about adults all the time. He's acting like a child. She's acting like a child. You are. Your inner child is what you're acting like. And if you don't work on it, it frickin' works you, man.
Yeah.
All day, all night. And so that's where the hope came in. The hope came in that I might learn some tools so that in those moments where the inner child is trying to show itself and become the operating system, I have the tool sets now to settle that voice down and operate from me right here, this adult that you see on your screen who knows some things, who's confident, who, like you said, is good in his skin finally.
Yeah.
And that's a different way to live your life because you no longer need to control everything. You are simply okay sitting back and letting things happen to you.
Yeah.
That's when you can breathe.
Sure. I mean,
that's when you can breathe.
I've always been that guy who's proactive, forward thinking, trying to schedule stuff. When I say schedule stuff, like when professionally, I'm terrible at scheduling like vacations or dates or things like that. So I don't want to say that. And then my wife said,
"You're good at working.
You don't ever schedule." Yeah, exactly. But I got to a point where like when I found out my baby was coming and I was going to be the second child in, 14 months. How am I going to do this career coming up, 6 months down the road and do this and that? And I finally got to the point I was like, screw it. I'm not going to, because that's when the anxiety sets in. I'm going to worry about today. I'll worry about tomorrow. I'll worry about the day after that. It's what I had to do. It's what I had to do.
Because all your anxiety is past or future.
Yeah.
All of it.
Yeah.
All of it. Because if it's for anybody who's done cognitive therapy, you'll appreciate this. But there's this whole bit about grounding yourself in truth. What's real right here, right now? What's the truth right now? And for almost all of us, at least the 5 or 6 people that are a part of this production right now, it's like, well, I don't know. Right now, things are good.
Yeah.
I'm in a chair, I'm in a house, I'm pretty cozy, got a glass of water, pretty good conversation happening in front of me. I'm pretty good. And it's only when you start thinking about, okay, it's Wednesday, Friday, I've got that meeting at 3. I need to prepare for that. Right? Then your anxiety begins.
Sure.
And so for me now, it's just all about these, bring it right back here, man.
Yeah.
Bring it right back here. Because I could fully understand the anxiety that you mentioned of having the addition to the kids and the family and the surprise and all of that. But all of that anxiety comes because in your head, you had it orchestrated the way that it was going to go. And we all do this, right? Most of us do. It's like you had the last baby. We're like, okay, here's our plan. Here's what we're going to do. Here's what I'm going to do. Here's what you're going to do. Here's what you're going to do. Cool. And then, hey, shocker.
Exactly.
This is not exactly how it's going down.
That's right.
And if you can't surrender that, you're going to be miserable because the baby's not going anywhere. The baby's coming for you. Right?
That's right.
He's coming. So he gets to meet you. You get another opportunity to put your mark on somebody. That's exceptional.
Sure.
That's exceptional.
It's a blessing. Absolutely.
It is, man. And it's really hard for people to understand that when they're in the thick of it, right? Like I remember when my kids were like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and you're like on permanent suicide watch. And it's like, they're going to kill themselves at any moment. What are we doing? Where are we going? You're running everywhere. You're doing all the things. And it feels like, am I ever going to get out of this?
Yeah.
And then they get to be a little bit teenagers and you find that, yeah, you will. They'll settle down. Their friends become more important.
Sure.
You get to jump back into your life a little bit more. But it's an interesting journey for sure, man.
Bro, I appreciate you so much. Thank you for not only being on this podcast, but thank you for what you've been able to be for me. I mean, I'll just never forget that phone conversation. And then I said, look, man, I don't expect anything from you. I don't expect you to be my doctor. I don't expect you to cure me. All I ask is that, can you be a friend? Can you be a friend? And when I need to, send a text message and just say, hey, what's up? And I wanted to be that for you as well. And so thank you for being that guy. I guess one last question. What is the future for Matthew Blaze? Because I know that you got the podcast. I'd love for you to plug your podcast. What gets you? So is this what gets you excited professionally now? Have you left radio for good?
Let me think about that.
I can play the Mix 93.3 air check again because that was probably
that part I'm done with.
Okay.
That part I'm done with for sure.
Okay.
That part I'm done with. Here's what I'm working on right now. So I've got this thing that I've launched. It's really a mental wellness movement called Learn from People Who Lived It. There's a lot of power, and I'll just use you and I as an example, Ron. I'm not a doctor, but I was able to be so helpful to you in that moment, just based on a few things that I had learned along the way. Just a little bit of peer support made you feel like you weren't quite so messed up, right?
100%.
Why don't we do that for more people? So
empathy,
that's the crux.
Empathy,
right?
Empathy.
It's the crux of what we do. So Learn from People Who Lived It is going to be more than just a podcast where, it is the podcast where we sit down with folks. We talk about their trauma. We talk about how they overcame it. We talk about how they got to healing, what their tools are, all the things. It's a fantastic listen. It's a little bumpy up front, right? Like there's some heavy stuff up front, but there's total hope at the end.
Sure.
And then we're also sitting down and talking with some leaders in different spaces, talking about the mind-body connection to pain, talking with mental health experts, wellness experts, shamans, spiritual leaders, the whole gamut of people, right? We want to get in and talk to. But then more than that, we're going to launch programming where I've assembled a team basically, and this team is all different modalities. There's breathwork specialists, meditation, yogis, equine therapy, which is horse therapy. There's a TRE expert, which is the release of your psoas muscle in your hips. And we're going to take this team of people and try to contract with schools, hospitals to get in and offer some in-office relief for their staff. Like you said, man, we're not going to fix people. That's not our goal. Our goal is to go in and let people know they're not alone.
Right.
And that we can let a little bit of that air out of the tires so they don't feel quite so wound up. So I'm excited about it, man. It's going to get to a place where I hope we have an entire podcast network of people, and it ends up being a lot of fun. What's up for you next?
Well, I got a podcast called the Papa Ron Podcast. Just launched that tonight. Cheers. Which I need another drink, by the way. I'm doing Heartland Waterfowl, and I'm just trying to get myself in a healthy spot, surround myself with some good, positive people who care about me, who authentically love me. And so I'm using the podcast basically as an avenue to share my experiences with mental health. Because I probably would have pussy before, unfortunately. I'm just being real, and now that I've experienced it, I want people, and men in particular, to understand that that is the wrong mindset. But I also, I'm using this as an avenue to promote some of the other businesses I'm involved with the TV show, with the chemical and PPE distribution business. And then I started a voiceover and commercial imaging and all of that doing the radio stuff, like, hey, I know I can do this. I did it for 22 years and it makes me feel good. So it's like I can be in radio without working for Pig Vomit.
There you go. Let me put you on the spot. As a guy who's a little bit earlier on in his journey, I'm somebody who's almost a full year into this, and I feel like a completely different human being.
Good.
For the guys like you who would have screamed pussy, as you say, up until this point, but now they're hearing a conversation and they're recognizing like, maybe there is something. Maybe I do need to talk to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
What can you say to them, man?
Well, that was a question I was going to ask you. But, for me, look, it's just my experience. I'm not the doctor, right? So I'm not saying it's the right answer, but for what I would say to them is don't do what I did, which is internalize the pain, the anguish, the shame, and all of those emotion. It was such a roller coaster of emotions. Don't internalize that ever. And I did it for 2 years and it nearly killed me.
Yeah,
man, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't give a damn but anybody else is going to think. Go talk to somebody, ask for help, surrender, because if you don't, I'm telling you, it will get worse. And I am so grateful to have these guys and you and I have a whole crew of people now that, that I've opened up to. And it took a lot for me actually on this podcast to be as vulnerable as I needed to be to explain to everybody why I'm even doing a podcast in the first place, because I got to this low point and Dakota really hit me over the head with doing a podcast for a multitude of different reasons, because I have a lot of different passions. But, I wanted to make sure that there was a foundation that people understood that I got to a dark spot and I needed to let people know that it's okay. It's okay to talk about it. So that's
well,
my
it's
answer.
okay to have the thoughts, man. They're gonna come. You just you can't hold them down because it makes it worse, man. You're spot on with what you said, and good on you, Dakota, for slapping him over the head with that 2x4 and getting him to go. And I'll tell you, you're gonna find, man, you're gonna find that this podcast becomes your medicine. And that's real. That's a real thing. And I say that because that's what we're here to do. If you ever look up the old philosopher Ram Dass, he's got the great quote, which is, we're all just walking each other home. And if you can think about your life that way and look left and right daily, look at the people in your home and say to yourself, how am I walking them home? Am I treating them with the kind of care that they deserve and I deserve? Or am I hanging on to shit all the time? Set it down. Own it, set it down, move into your life with all kinds of purpose.
Right.
Feel better, act better, look better, all the things, man. All the things. And I want to echo something you said in the beginning, which is kind of this overwhelming sentiment of tonight, which is both of us had this. Everything you think might happen might not.
Yep. Yeah. There's so
right.
Much. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I love you, man. Thank you.
Love you back, man. This was great. Thank you.
Thank you. I am so grateful that you spent the time and look, again, not only to be on this podcast, but you genuinely cared for me at a very, in the infancy stages of a very tough time for me. And it will always, and I told you this in a text message, it'll always be, I'll never forget that moment. I'll never forget it. It was pivotal. It was life-changing. Really.
It was special for me too, man. It really was, because like I just said, we're all walking each other home, and there's just so much medicine in helping somebody else feel better.
Right. Thank you, brother.
It's true.
I appreciate you. We're definitely going to be in touch. All right.
All right. Sounds good.
Matthew Blades, folks. Again, tell me the podcast. Learn from the people who lived it.
People who lived it. You got it.
Get on there. Subscribe. Solid dude. Radio legend. And an inspiration to me in more ways than just one. We're going to take a quick break here. Come back. We're going to wrap up episode 1 of the Papa Ron Podcast.
You're listening to the Papa Ron Podcast. Keep up to date on new podcasts, new discussion topics, and future casts. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Search Papa Ron Podcast and be sure to like and leave a comment. Now, back to the show. Here again is your host, Ronnie Phillips.
All right, we're going to wrap up the show. And again, I want to thank everybody for being so supportive of this particular episode because of the amount of motion, raw emotion, and excitement also that came into building this very first episode. Dakota Thurn, Quentin Verlanek, Marathon Media Management. Look them up on Instagram. Go ahead, plug your guys' all of your social digital platforms.
Yeah, we've got at the Real D Thurn. That's my personal handle, and then we've got Marathon Media Management. on Instagram, Facebook as well. That's where you can see all of our creative work. And then also we have a property management company that's called Timberline Properties, which we're spending a lot of time. That's kind of a ground up business right now that we're really putting a lot of effort in. And we're really excited about it. So you can find us on all those different platforms. And Q, what's your handle?
Quentin Verlinick.
Spell that last name.
Yeah, you got to spell the last name.
V's and Victor, RLENICH. It's hard as shit to pronounce.
I've known Q for 10 years and still don't get it right. And I write his paychecks.
No, it's very uncommon, but get used to it.
QVR. Right, no, I screwed that up already. QR. Gosh, damn it. See, we're screwing this up.
VRLENICH.
There you go.
Verlinick.
There you go. Damn it. I also want to take a quick moment here because I need to send an additional thanks to a couple guys who helped me with the production elements to get the show started. These were guys that I worked with in Tucson, Arizona, which was actually Clear Channel, but is now known as iHeartRadio. Rick Hunter and Rich Donovan, a.k.a. Donovan. I'm going to start with Rick because he's actually the voice. He works for iHeartRadio out of Tucson. He's always been an inspiration and a mentor to me. I worked with him during my days in Tucson. Always a good friend, took time, offered respect, respectful criticism, and always very encouraging and no matter what I did. And for those who are video gamers, he's actually the voice of the main character on the game called Postal. If you're a video gamer, I'm not a gamer, but I found out that he's a big damn deal because of that video game. Another guy that I looked up to who's been very helpful in the production elements of this show is Donovan. And I've always had a tremendous amount of respect for his production and imaging skills. Real solid radio personality as well. He's currently residing in San Francisco and has got his own online radio station and is doing very well. And if you like music from the 80s and the top hits of other decades, you might want to check it out. It's called coolfmonline.com. Rick and Donovan, I love you guys. Thank you so much for all of the support and the time and energy that you put into helping me build this podcast. So next week on the show, we're going to be discussing the upcoming Heartland Premier Charity Golf Classic to benefit the Restoration House of Greater Kansas City. It's an incredible organization with a multitude of houses and around the Kansas City metro that houses and protects and rehabilitates victims of human trafficking. It's a topic that or many that are uncomfortable to discuss, but we feel called to bring it to the forefront. So thank you all for the support and the encouragement. It feels so good to do this. And I'm thrilled to say the Papa Ron podcast is officially launched. So for Dakota Thurn, Quentin Verlinick, and my boy Matthew Blades, I'm Ronnie Phillips, and I like to party.
You've been listening to the Papa Ron podcast.
MHD.
If you enjoyed this show, hit subscribe now and tell your friends on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, and other social platforms. To participate on the show, leave a message with your comments or questions by calling or texting 816-558-6389. That's 816-558-6389. Until next time, thanks for listening to the Papa Ron Podcast. Papa Ron Podcast.